Hey friend, today's conversation is one that is much needed and a bit personal. Today, we are going to stop playing scared and stop being intimidated about the topic of life after loss. As October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the month has been filled with constant reminders of my mom in the journey that she endured as she fought the awful disease known as breast cancer. My mother's passing taught me so much during the time of her suffering, and I continue to learn new lessons each and every day. Yes, the topic of loss may feel uncomfortable, and you may even want to stop listening to the podcast at this point. But do me a favor and hang in there with me, friends, because you need to hear my thoughts on setting yourself up for success whenever you are forced to deal with loss. I want to share with you how I continue to navigate life after losing my mother, my best friend, as well as my tips on how you may set your family and loved ones up for success after experiencing a loss. So listen in. Hey there, and welcome to A Well-Rounded Life, the podcast, a space for creative entrepreneurs seeking an intentional life and biz filled with grace, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Geomyra. I'm a mama, wife, dessert fanatic, and on the ultimate mission to get you closer to your idea of what it means to live a well-rounded life. Right here is where you'll find curated resources, quick tips, and relatable stories, no matter what season of life you're in. So hang out with me for a bit and let's dive in. Some of you may be wondering how I came up with today's show topic. Yes, it's a little different from what we normally discuss, but like I said, I feel like it's a topic that we need to discuss. My husband and I, we had a conversation recently about my mother's passing. And if you're new here, I explain in detail on episode 9 the story of losing my mother to breast cancer back in November of 2010. It was 2010, yeah. In our conversation, I expressed to my husband how blessed I feel that my mother semi-prepared me on how to navigate life after her passing. And I say semi-prepared because in reality, some of us really can't be fully prepared to lose someone so close to us. You may never be prepared to lose your mother or a person that made you who you are, or someone that you felt gave you purpose, such as a child. However, where I did feel prepared is knowing exactly what my mother's personal wishes were before she passed. The peace of mind of knowing what she wanted to happen when she transitioned was one of the best gifts that she could have ever left me. Think about that. I'm sure you may know someone or you yourself may have to deal with handling a family member's affairs after they pass. And wouldn't it be the best feeling to know how they wanted their finances handled? Or the type of memorial service or funeral service that they desired? That is precisely what my mother did for me and my siblings, and a gift that I am forever grateful for. My mother, unbeknownst to me, had a will that she had drafted years prior to her passing. Before she even knew she was sick, she just had a will in place, which I always say is important when you have children and you have just a lot of things going on in your life. It's just important to have everything documented the way you want it. So my mother's breast cancer diagnosis, it forced her to revise her will to make sure it was up to date and that it was clear with her intentions as she battled through her illness. My mother was made aware by her doctors that her cancer was very aggressive, and they let her know that it was unlikely that she would be able to survive the type of cancer that she was diagnosed with, because she was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer. Unlike some people that pass away suddenly, the small blessing in knowing that you are sick is the ability to speak up on what it is that you want. Some people, when they pass away, just all of a sudden, they don't get to let their family know what their wishes are. So, like I said, I'm grateful that even though she was sick, I had an opportunity to really hear what she wanted in her own words from her. But here's the thing that I have come to realize recently. You can set your family up for success instead of distress by being vocal with them on what your desires are. By taking the time to curate a will, your family may use said will as a roadmap to make sure your affairs are in order. And I know some of you may not be feeling this conversation already or don't like to talk about death, but let me get you hip to something, my friend. Death is inevitable. The fact that we are going to pass one day is one thing that I know for sure. And with that said, it's time we have a conversation about what needs to happen so that we aren't being selfish. Yes, I said selfish. By not speaking up and being clear, we are being beyond selfish. In the conversation that I had with my husband about our wills, there were some tough questions that came up. I'm not even going to lie. Questions like, where do you want our kids to go if someone were to happen to both of us? How do you want our valuables to be distributed? What happens to the home that we built together and so forth? Those are some of the questions that came up in our conversation. A few minutes into the conversation, the hubby said that he wasn't feeling the conversation. He just didn't like the idea of something happening to either one of us. And I acknowledge his feelings and the fact that the conversation of loss may make some people feel uncomfortable. However, I then encouraged him to stop thinking selfishly, and I let him know that it was important for me to know exactly what he wanted. I told him that I did not want to spend time or energy in my grieving period feeling confused about the pieces of the puzzle that needed to be placed. Really felt that we don't always think about the people that we leave behind that have to figure it all out, try to figure out all the details and the logistics of tying up loose ends while they're in the process of grieving. I'm a person that has dealt with grieving and trying to figure it all out at the same time. And believe you me, it is not fun. So as we finalize our will, because we are still in the process of doing that, I want to encourage you to join us and at least start the conversation. I'm also including a free download to accompany today's show because I want to make sure that you have access to some questions just to get the foundation going and to just make sure that you and your partner are on the same page. The download is a simple list of questions that I think will be super helpful because sometimes we just don't even know where to start. Okay, let's just get the conversation started. I want to leave you with 3 tips that will help you tackle the topic of life after loss. The first tip I want to leave you with is set some time aside to converse and get the conversation started. My husband and I, we started that conversation. We started the conversation towards the end of one of our date days that we have each week so that we wouldn't have any distractions with the kids running around us and just the phones ringing and internet and everything else. So we decided to have that conversation while we had each other's attention so that we knew that it would be a conversation that was intentional. The second thing that I want to leave you with is I want to leave you with the list of questions that I mentioned. I want you to grab the freebie from today's show, and I want you to start going through the questions in detail. Make sure that you use the sheet as a guide, and then I want you to add to the list of questions because all of our families, they're all different. Our families are all have different components, different types of people, different relationships, so it's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. But you can at least get the foundation handled, such as where you may want your small kids to go, or who's going to inherit your watch collection, your designer handbags, and who gets nothing. Make it clear because I will also tell you there will be people that may not agree with what you decide. But guess what? You got the paper, and so that's the main thing that matters. I mean, some people have some other thoughts on it. But like I said, this will at least get the conversation started. The third tip that I want to leave you with is to bring other important parties into the conversation. You're probably like, who else needs to be a part of the conversation? So yes, my husband and I have a ton of legwork that we need to sift through. However, our families and even some of our close friends will be affected when our time comes. Those individuals, they also need to be made privy of what our wishes are so that they may also get the respect that they deserve during the process. That is something that people don't think about as well, that you have relationships with your friends, you have relationships with aunts, cousins, or whoever. And so there may be things you want to leave those people. There may be people that need to just be cut all the way out of the will. And so it's important to make that clear because your family members that are grieving are going to have to deal with these people and battle them in court and spend money unnecessarily because you selfishly didn't leave them instructions. Okay? You see how that kind of all works. But I just wanted to leave you with those 3 simple tips to get you started. And someone asked me about the process of filling out a will and whatnot. And I have a few thoughts on that as well. So in my case, my mother's will was signed, it was notarized, and it was kept on hand at the attorney's office. And I also had a copy with her important documents on hand as needed. Super important to let people know where you are leaving everything so that they also aren't tearing up the house searching for a few pieces of important documents, okay? Another tip that was a saving grace for me was hiring an estate attorney. If you are dealing with a family member that may have assets or properties, or even feel like you have family members that may be challenging you along the way, I want you to hire an estate attorney, because guess what, guys? We don't know what the heck we're doing. So sometimes not sometimes, all the time, it's important to leave all of this kind of stuff up to the subject matter expert. Okay. It is the peace of mind that you will need during this crazy process of grief, loss, death, and all of that. So hire people that are very much more experienced than you, and it will be your saving grace along the way. All right, so those are my tips for navigating life after loss. I really hope that they were helpful. It's a super quick episode because I just want you to get the conversation started with the people around you so that you can just make sure they feel comfortable about what you ultimately want. All right. Thank you for listening in and sticking with me through this not so fun topic of loss. But honestly, loss is a part of living well-rounded, because you cannot live well-rounded and in peace when you have confusion and uncertainty standing in your way. So think about that. You cannot live your well-rounded life, best life, or any of that stuff when you just don't feel like your best self. I encourage you to set those appointments with your family members so that you can have the clarity and the comfort of knowing that all will be well and everybody's good and nobody haunting you once they're gone. We don't want none of that either. If you found today's show to be helpful, do me a favor and share it with someone else. I feel like I know you know someone that could benefit from this episode. Basically, everyone can benefit from this episode because we all will have to deal with loss at some point or another. And if you're listening in, we always love it when you tag us on Instagram. We're at Coach for Creatives, or on Facebook, Coaching for Creatives. Easy peasy. So check out the show notes and the website for even more resources and helpful tools. Share the love. We really appreciate you for listening, Well-Rounder. Now promise me that you are going to go spend some time with the people that you love and that you will continue to live well-rounded. Bye. Friends, thanks for kicking it with us this week. Remember to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode airs. I'd love it if you leave us a review and share this goodness with your squad. Until next time, seek a well-rounded life and remember to focus on what matters most.